Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final day of Dare to Be Great 2024. And we are going to kick it off with an excellent panel discussion all day today. We have panel discussions, and we're going to go out with a bang. It's going to be epic, and I'm super excited. I'm going to throw it over to Keely for this session. She is doing, everyone here is doing a panel called Hear Us Out. Admin isn't always against you, always against you. So, we are going to get started here, and I'm going to bring Roxy back in here really quick. And
She's like, let me back in.
yeah. All right. So she should be coming in here in just a few seconds. And I'm just going to, there we go. I'm going to put myself out of this and take it away.
Hello, everybody. Roxy, welcome back. Can we hear you? Can we hear? Is she here? Oh no, she's been thrown out again. Well, while we're waiting for Roxy to come back in and join us, I will go ahead and we're going to kick this off with a little introductions for each of our panelists here. We've got Miss Anne Camaro, Kevin Lassard, and Tina Bonetta, who are all fabulous directors in the space and people that I admire and look up to in the space, which is why when I had this harebrained idea, they're the first people that I contacted to get on board and kind of, let's brainstorm how this looks. We have Miss Anne. So why don't you give us we'll start with you, Anne. Just give us a little bit about who you are, how you got here, that sort of stuff.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Camaro. I'm the Director of Emergency Communications at Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch in Central Massachusetts. I've been in the 911 field for over 18 years now. Started out as a 911 call taker, police dispatcher, and made my way up to Executive Director.
All right. Kevin, how about you?
I'm Kevin Lassard. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Middlesex Regional Emergency Communications Center. I'm actually Northeast Mass, sort of a neighbor to Ann and her center. I'm 20 years in this coming June, and between part-time dispatching in the town of Dedham, I was a dispatcher for many years, worked midnights, nights, any which schedule you can think of at the town of Brookline Public Safety Emergency Communications, and then I became a supervisor there. And then in 2020, I joined this crew at Northern Middlesex, and I've been here since then. And we are a brand new startup regional center, and just happy, like I said, to be here and part of this amazing panel today.
Excellent, Roxy. Let's see if we got you.
I hope. Let's see how long I last. I'm Roxy Van Gundy. I am a director in Lyon County, Kansas. I have been in 911 for about 19 years. I started here in the center that I now direct way long ago. And about 5 years into starting in 911, my husband and I got a harebrained idea to sell everything we owned and drive 4,000 miles to Alaska. So I started with the Alaska State Troopers Northern Operations Center in Fairbanks. Worked there for several years. I've been a trainer, a shift supervisor, all the things, and became director here in 2018. I had to move home for my mom. So yeah, it's been a journey. I'm also pretty active in NENA and am your current second vice president on the executive board. So that's me.
She is. Tina.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tina Bonetta. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary in 911. Now, back when I started, employment laws might have been different. So I was like 12, but shh, don't tell anybody. I began in the seat. I spent 20 years with the Colorado State Patrol. I was a dispatcher, became a line supervisor. I did that for about a decade and then launched into center management. So I've been in urban and rural centers throughout the state. And in the end of 2019, I had a very unique opportunity to become the director of what now is known as Aurora 911. just about to celebrate my 5th year anniversary there. It goes by so fast. But I've done it all. I've been a CTO. I've worked graveyards. It was the most fun ever. And just, the stuff that happens at 2 a.m. You just can't beat that. So love it. 911 is who I am. It's in my blood. And I'm so honored to be in this space today. Because I want the opportunity to share some of the things I've learned through my journey, and to help everyone just understand that we're all doing the best we can with what we have and what we know, and we're all growing together. So I hope we do that today together. Thanks for having me.
Of course. This is exactly, to Tina's point, this is exactly why we're here today. So a little bit about me. I am Keely Heyman. I am now the retired director from Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Center in Central New Jersey. For those of us on the line right now that are from New Jersey, you might argue with me that Central New Jersey exists. It does. I swear. I live there. So that said, I just finished 25 years in June of this past year. And then my official retirement date was December 1. About a year ago, I was sitting in the center. It was one of those rough days, right? Like everything had gone wrong. Everything that could go wrong in the center went wrong. I had had 2 call outs back to back. My radio system went down. I had a dispatcher in the office that was complaining about another dispatcher. And I leaned back from my desk and I put my head down and I just started to cry. And I was like, like I got here, right? And I remember when I started, I was an EMT in the street. I had a fight with a dispatcher because I just didn't understand their job. And then I landed with an application and was told, if you think you can do it better, then apply. 25 years later, I applied and then I did all the things. And that particular day sort of broke me a little because I realized that my staff had no idea what I had been up against all morning. And I had had a particularly trying conversation with some board members virtually. And then the radio system went down and then they were complaining about each other and then they were calling out and I had to fill shifts and it just broke me. And when that dispatcher was standing in front of me, that was the final straw for me. And I remember thinking, and I even said out loud, why do you think that I am against you? Because I'm not. And when she walked out, I just sat there and I just cried for a little bit because I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. And this is just too much for me. And there's sort of where this begins is I'm like, maybe I need to get some of the people in my space. And I have had the pleasure of talking to all of these people that are currently on here with us for, in different arenas, different platforms, and all of us at the end of the day, what I can tell you to be true is that all of us love 911. All of us love what we do. And for the most part, we love all of our people. But how do we engage our people to let them know that we truly, truly do love them and love everything about 911, or we wouldn't be doing what we do. Let's face that. Like, this is a hard job. And then the higher you go, the lonelier it gets. So then we lean on each other in the space across the nation and talk about our challenges. And most recently, by the way, we're at 1,000, everybody. 1K. So most recently, we were in Portland, Maine at one of the conferences. And this is, I think, where we have a great opportunity to kind of talk to each other. We were kind of like roundtabling some of the questions we wanted to talk about. And the amount of laughter that we were having at this table, because we truly do engage and love our people and talk about our people like they're our family. And I just thought that was really inspiring. And as funny as some of it was and how wildly inappropriate as some of it was, the core was that we really do want to connect with all of you and our people. So I'm going to start with some questions here and we're going to just talk. We're just going to talk about our frustrations, the things that are going on. So I am going to start with this one because this is the one that had me, that was my breaking point. And it's, how do you juggle the plate spinning act of dispatchers, upper management, partner agencies, the public, our IT, our management? How do you do that? Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it. I'll be the first one.
Do it, okay. Tina.
All right. So it's really, in my perspective, has shifted so much over the last 25 years. I just to kind of go back in time for just a minute in the Wayback Machine. When I began my job and I learned the trade, I learned the processes. That was my focus, right? My focus as a line level first responder was to execute the mission, right? Connect people to resources. You get the job done, right? Your information flow. And for that, it was complicated. It's hard work. I loved it with all my heart. But really my perspective was that is where my world began and ended. And so I looked at it through the lens of the world. The 911 world begins and ends around the phone call to the CAD, to the dispatch, to the incident management. And as I grew, I learned that I was one piece of a large machine of resources and people and specialties and focuses that help us to get the job done. All the magic has to happen in order for my process of answering the call, understanding what's happening, and deploying a resource can happen. And so as I've grown, I've learned that number one, I have to trust in the people around me who have different areas of expertise. I can't control everything that happens around me. I can influence, I can communicate, I can make my needs known, I can offer assistance. And that is how I can do it. So when I think about the forest, if I think about it as the whole, it can be very overwhelming. What I've learned is I have to think about it in terms of the trees, beginning with me and what I control. And because if I don't do that, I become overwhelmed. I become frustrated. I become cynical. I become angry and hurt, and I feel alone and I feel unsupported. And so it's really about just not feeling like I have to be everything to everyone at the same time, because I'm human just like everyone else. So that's really where I want to start with that, but I want to kick it off to one of my co-panelists here to see what they have to say.
So I'll pick up from there and just talk a little bit about. I also had a real hard time letting go of all of the things, right? I wanted to be involved in everything and I wanted to be a part of everything because, again, 911 is the job that I love, right? I didn't become an administrator because I like to pay bills. I became an administrator because I wanted to make 911 better. So, understanding that I can't do all the things and be all the things and be involved in everything. That was a very hard realization for me. But what helped me kind of get over that hump was also that I had an amazing staff behind me. And for the first time, I think in these 18 years, I am able to say that the staff that supports me today, they make me comfortable in being able to step aside and be with my family and being able to take a trip. I will be taking a trip soon and I'll be out of the country for 2 weeks, and I'm able to do that because I have the support of my staff. But it doesn't come overnight and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens with hard work and understanding that sometimes you do have to let go and allow people to do their jobs.
I certainly agree with this. I feel as though there's this part of you as the type A personality and the dispatcher who's always the person in control, that when we start getting up there in rank and when we start sitting in these leadership roles, we're kind of like, we've got to have our hands in everything. And you're kind of like, but you have to trust that there are people out there and really know what your people are good at. I feel like that was for me the biggest, once I was kind of honing in on what my people were good at, what they brought to the table, I was able to relinquish some of the tasks to each of them and feel a little bit better about it. However, I will say there's a lot of hats to wear. And we are doing a whole lot that you don't see. And I want to kick this one over to Kevin. With all of the hats to wear, people manager, tech wizard, budget guru, all of the things that we do, and then on top of it, people person, right? What's your go-to strategy to stay laser focused on the center's mission without losing sight of who you are and what the center needs?
Of course, thank you, Keely. It is a very tough thing to do. It's probably one of the toughest things, more than anything I've learned in the tech world, the IT world, the things that you have to kind of pick up along the way to become a director, and always learning and wanting to learn. Having that mentality has been a huge part of my experience to this point, and why I'm lucky enough to be in this position that I am. To stay laser focused on that, I just have to remind myself of where I started, like Tina said earlier, and kind of like what the goal is, to make sure that I know that if I drop one plate, think of it like an octopus with all the tentacles, with one thing going higher in priority and one thing maybe going down the line, is that you just have to maintain that balance. You need a work-life balance, of course, but the mission, of course, is the number one thing. And whenever I find myself putting maybe one of my needs a little bit higher than the group or the center or even people in the industry, I've taken a step back. I've said, I'm going to get overwhelmed if I don't put something down or bring it down the priority. And that's been very successful for me. But when I do have that problem that I just don't know how to get around, that's when I call some of my friends here and I reach out to them and I say, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. What do you think you would do? Or what should I do? Just take me down a notch here. Like, what am I missing? Am I not seeing the whole picture? Because that's what brings the mission back into focus, because someone can give that outside perspective. They've been there and they've done that. Or even if they haven't, they'll say, well, at this point, this is what I would suggest, but you do you know what's going to work best for you and your team. And you just really have to think about the people that are surrounding you. What do they need in that moment? They might not care about all these other things that you're doing because they're concerned about the issue that's in front of them, that's affecting their job and the ability to do their job, which is really, again, the mission. It's great to have a plan and be all organized, but when it doesn't go well, you have to go back to, again, what are we here for? So that's what's worked well for me so far.
I love that. Roxy, you have something?
I think I'm going to go a different direction here. I'm somebody who's really a little bit of a control freak, because I think if you're a dispatcher and you start as a dispatcher, that's sort of ingrained in you a little bit. I think I've had to learn that I can't have control of everything and I can only do the best that I can. And that if it doesn't turn out the way I hope, then that's okay. We'll try something new. We'll keep going. We'll keep trying to pivot and change. But I think the toughest part for me is just remembering that that's not a me thing. It just didn't work, and we have to just keep trying. And that sometimes gets me derailed from the mission because I take that so personally and I care about it so much. So just understanding that I'm just a person. I can only do what I can do, and we can only try the best we can. So
I think that's a key point, is we can only do the best that we can, and we can only do one thing at a time, right? We're humans. So we can't manage all of the things at the same time. So, one of the things that I think always happened was when everything went wrong, it went wrong at the same time. It's like Murphy's Law, and I would challenge anyone to say that whenever we're dealing with tasks, we're dealing with 6 more things that are sitting on our desk at the same time. And, prioritizing what the need is doesn't mean that we're ignoring what the person is maybe in front of us talking about, complaining about, whatever it is. It's not that we're ignoring it. It's not that we're not going to get to it. It's just you have to allow a little bit of time because we might have some other priority things going on. Like, I think Melissa Altieri is the one who says transparency without the risk of confidentiality. And that rang so true because there are so many things that we may have on our plate or on our dish, and we can't manage it all at the same time. But there's some things we can't even talk about because it hasn't hit something or hasn't hit a forum somewhere, or maybe our administration. And like the word admin, I want to say this, we're leadership. Admin are the people we report to, right? Like there's always somebody above us. And so leadership for us is definitely what we're doing. We're trying to lead the troops through whatever the chaos is. And we're also trying to be sensitive to what our board or what our chiefs or whoever we're reporting to also wants and desires, right? So I want to debunk a couple of myths here. So how can we put the HR conspiracies to rest once and for all? I want to talk about this because I feel like somebody comes in, they've got a complaint, they're really angry about it. I want to talk about why it is that maybe we're not sharing that information. Which one of you would like to take that one and run?
I always say HR is a secret. And I recently had this conversation with one of my dispatchers. You're always picking on me. You're always doing things to me. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm really just doing my job. Well, you don't do it to anybody else. I go, you don't know that. Well, I don't see it. Well, right. That's on by design. HR things are secret. They're not to be shared. They are things that are discussed within my office or within your supervisor's office. They're to stay there. There's no sharing of discipline. There's no sharing of the things the hard conversations we have, because those are private and those are learning opportunities for that one individual. I say this so much, and I think it's finally starting to click that I am trying to be as fair as I can, but I'm also trying to protect you. So I think that's where I'm coming from with the HR is a secret. Is I am trying to protect everybody from the gossip mill, from the rumor mill, from all of the other things that come when these things are made public.
I definitely agree with that. I feel there's a lot to be said about how we as the leadership teams decide to pursue discipline if it's necessary, complaints if how we decide to handle them is a secret. And it's nobody's business how we choose to go forward, and you have to trust that we're doing something about it, because not always is like suspension an option, because all it's doing is creating another hole in the schedule for us to fill, and you're already complaining about the holes in the extra overtime. So we're trying to be mindful about some of those things. We're trying to be mindful that maybe perhaps this rises to the level of discipline, but if I do something egregious to this person, I'm also going to lose them. So we have to discuss other ways to talk about discipline. Maybe it's going back to training classes. Maybe it's, a suspension that requires us to take away vacation time instead of, just taking them off the schedule. Obviously, if it's huge, people are probably going to find out about it, but we're trying to avoid those things. These are all teaching moments, right? We're not trying to rule with an iron fist. We're trying to lead our staff to be the best staff they are, be the best team members they can be, to get rid of toxicity, to get rid of the rumor mills, to get, we're trying to lead in that direction. And we've got a whole lot of other things that are stacking up against us. And to that point, culture is everyone's responsibility. So we need a translation on that. How can self-awareness and self-regulation make that idea a reality?
I'll jump into that.
Yeah, go for it, Tina. I saw her face.
Yeah. So I think just this last part of the conversation about HR, all of these things tie together. So just thinking about the journey of our team in Aurora for the last 5 years, when I arrived as the new director, I came into a culture where, we had a separate HR department within the city and an employee relations unit who were there to, you could reach out confidentially and they would assist you with whatever was going on. But what I found was all perceived conflict for any reason was going there instead of a conversation happening between two employees or between an employer and their supervisor. And we had these layers of people in positions who were always being bypassed. And so that no conflict was getting resolved face to face. And so from my perspective, I just understood that if we can, like, everything is figure outable. If we have a perceived issue with anything, we can always sit down and we can find a win-win. We can learn from each other. We can grow together. And so a part of this journey was, number one, reaching out to HR as the leader to say, give me an opportunity. I want to empower my team to get good at dealing with things quickly and directly and one-on-one and discreetly, and honor each other and have each other's back, because we can turn this around. And so that's what we did. And it's really about, as a director, there shouldn't be a parade of people coming into my office to unload things on me. And I made that very clear from the beginning. I said, by the it needs to start small, start local, right? I should be the last stop, not the first one. And by doing that, I felt like I could support and empower my manager, my supervisors, and even every member of the line level staff to be able to know that they're supported, to have those conversations. And because we want that to be the case. Working together over the last few years, our team was able to work together and define what our team values are. Everyone contributed to it. So it's teamwork, integrity, compassion, and respect. And then working to operationalize those core values and giving each other permission and the expectation that they'll hold themselves and each other accountable to living those values. So just a quick side story, I'll tell you, the happiest thing ever happened this week. We had, every month we have team meetings, and it's a larger center, so we can't close the center down and have everyone together at once. But we have a meeting on Tuesday afternoon and on Thursday afternoon, and you have to sign up for one and you have to come in. It's mandatory. However, this time we had annual awards and we had a holiday party, and people brought their kids, their infants. We had Secret Santa, we played games, we had an ugly sweater contest, there were dogs there. It was amazing. And yesterday was the second one, and I sat there just watching everyone. I watched mothers who kind of walked in and like exchanged their infants with each other. And so we had mothers holding someone else's baby throughout the meeting. And it really warmed my heart. It's possible. People will rise to your level of expectation. And if they get the message, always, right? Like, I believe in you. You can figure this out. You're so smart and capable. There's a reason you're here. We need you. People will rise to that. And as a leader, I had to learn to step out of it. I don't need to have my fingers in everything. I don't need to be in the middle of everything. I can let my team work things out because they're so able to do that. Sometimes we think that failure is something we want to avoid. And the truth of the matter is I fail every day. I'm fallible. I mess up all the time. So being transparent about those things and not trying to hide them or thinking that my credibility is damaged because I make a mistake. No, I'm going to be open about that because I want us all to fail forward together. And that, we were talking about like being like learning from past leaders. And in my heart of hearts, I believe truly, remembering where I come from, and I'm trying to be the leader that I needed because I learned about extreme accessibility. I learned that you answer your emails 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I learned that even if you're on vacation, if your phone rings, you better answer it. And how has that worked for us, right? We talk about burnout and we talk about emotional, compassion fatigue and all of those things. And none of us can pour from an empty cup. So if we can advocate for each other in those areas and just relax a little bit, it becomes so much easier. And I'm sad it took me this many years to figure it out.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Roxy, you have anything to add to that?
I think she said it all.
Tina always says it all. Tina's good for that. Tina, you talked about that failing forward together, right? That vulnerability level that I feel, and I think was that Jeremy that just put in the comments about legacy leadership, and that you're always kind of following in the footsteps of the person that has come before you, and that may not be what the culture shift in your center needs to be. And I think one of the things when I took over was kind of, I had to be vulnerable about the fact that there are things I don't know the answer to. And I feel like when we step into these leadership roles, we are in fact afraid to say, I don't know, or I screwed up. Right. And I think that was for me right off the hop, probably when I stepped in before Jeremy came into my center. I was alone and a pandemic was starting. And my director before that had left. And I was over here like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And I think that was my defining moment where it was like, I'm just going to tell you that I'm scared too, that I don't know what this means for us because I don't have all the answers, but we'll figure it out. And more importantly, we're going to figure this out together. And that, I think, is the key, is that failing forward together, right? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a straight line. It's going to be up and down and sideways and front ways and back ways. And it's going to be the elevator from Willy Wonka. And and we're not looking for the red button to eject ourselves out of the place. we're going to take this ride and we're going to do it together. And I feel that goes back to the culture is everyone's responsibility, and allowing each other grace and permission to hear each other and to cut it out. Like, if there's something that doesn't align with what you feel is supposed to be part of the conversation on a floor, call it out. Don't come running into my office. Say something to the person in a tactful manner. Please, guys out there that are in the centers, tactful. Don't go cutting each other's throats. There's no reason for that, but a tactful manner of saying, hey, listen, I really didn't like that, the way that you're talking to this other employee, or maybe I don't like the way that sounds. I feel like your dispatchers are the heartbeat of the center. They're the ones that are in there. They're the ones that are performing the tasks. They're the ones ingesting all the technology that is advancing at about 1 million miles a minute. Teaming up with us and creating that space where they can trust each other. They can lean on each other. And like Tina said, then you get to a holiday party and they're exchanging each other's families. They're inviting each other to birthday parties. That's huge. That's very huge. There should never be a divide. And there isn't a divide between leadership and the floor, but there is sort of this tricky balance of friendly, but not friends, right? That we're on that fence all the time. So Kevin, how do you define that role or define that line? Because that's a tough line to balance on.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that since we first brought it up. And it is something that honestly, and I think about this often, is that I've kind of created some barriers to make sure that I protect myself, my family, and my coworkers, because they are my colleagues, they are my coworkers. I am not the boss. I'm not this like person who thinks that, I can't do anything, right, this and that. No, I have to be like vulnerable and say, I do things wrong sometimes. I'm your ally in things in a lot of areas, you can name them all, but right off the bat, I've had to create that barrier of like, you know what, some people might be very, very close with their staff and they're all Facebook friends with them and they're on other social media platforms with them. And if you do that with your team, that means, your culture has accepted that. I have taken a different approach to say, like, I ask the team, I talk to them, I go in and visit them every day on the floor before, after I go home for the day, so that I'm not just separated from them, because my office spaces was created that way, not by my staff or my choosing. So that's something I've always had to say, hey, I'm just going to create this little barrier between us, but it doesn't mean I don't care what's going on, and tell me about it. Tell me what's been going on with your children. But having support of that from my team has been enormous as we've grown, and our staff has gone more concrete in how many years they've been here. And it's just been a great thing to see those conversations evolve over time. It's not like a simple solution you can just implement when you start in a position of leadership. You have to work towards that. But I definitely have that just small separation in that regard, so that people can feel like they can be themselves, be their true selves, and not worried about like, oh, well, yeah, I'm friends with the boss and he just saw what I did last weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. It doesn't affect me and my center when you're not here. I support you, whatever you do. And I just, I've thought about that a lot recently, actually.
Roxy, are you leaning in to talk more about that? I saw you moving.
I'm just moving. I mean, I guess it's difficult for me because I come from a little bit of a different situation where a lot of the people that I manage were my coworkers and people I started with. So that's been a journey because, we started as friends. How do you stop being friends? So I think that I've had to come at that a little bit differently. And I don't think there's any straight line. You have to figure out what works best for the group that you have.
I definitely agree. There is no straight line to leadership, right? Like you're figuring it out too. It's I hate to equate it to this for the moms in the group, but it's like you're discovering how to be a mom and you're learning how to do that. You're learning how to essentially parent in a different role. And it's so difficult sometimes when you're trying to establish boundaries, but still I also, just like Roxy, came up through the ranks. And really my promotion was I wouldn't say well revered, because I came from, like, I was a CO1 and then I was being bumped all the way up to deputy director. Like, I didn't hit the steps in between. So I can't imagine what it was like for this room of people who had been working there from the beginning. And I think there's just something to be said about being humble as you start to move forward, but also not forgetting where you came from. But there's also this, I guess, this mentality, right? Like, you can't work the console and lead at the same time. It's not it like you can't be a superhero and have two jobs. And in my center, there were some times where I was getting on the desk. And it's like, in that moment, I want to be like the other dispatchers in the room, right? Like, that's where I am. I'm not your director. I'm not judging you on every movement. I'm not QAing your calls while I'm sitting in the console seat. I am a dispatcher just like you. I came from the ranks just like you, and I can allow grace for a lot of things, for a lot of mentality, for a lot of, like, you hang up the phone and you blast the caller, just as long as it's either on mute or you've really disconnected. Please don't do that live. But I think there's a lot to be said about how we start learning how to lead and create a boundary between the friendships. I had to do that once. I had a dispatcher who texted me one day and was really upset. And the way she came at me, I had to draw the line in the sand. And it was like, may I remind you, I am your boss. I am not your BFF. Please take this up the ranks like you are supposed to. Right? And that's what we were just talking about before, is like, there's people in between all of that. Talk to your supervisors, cut it off there, cut it off at the pass, have a conversation. And that's what we're talking about, because there's this toxic tradition of always being on in our communities, especially in leadership roles, like Tina said, answering the phone 24/7. Answer, that phone rings or that email comes through at 9:00 at night. Oh, I got to answer that. You get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you pick up your phone, which is a terrible idea. Don't do that. You pick it up, you see it at 2:00 in the morning, and you're like, oh, I better answer this. Why? what can we do to curb and build healthier work-life balances, not just as leaders, but also what would you go back and tell your baby dispatcher self as you start to do this? Kevin, you want to start there?
Yeah, definitely. So I appreciate what everyone said so far in this. I think about how can I be a good steward to both the center and the team, but also think about what the mission is, right? And what the admins above us, what our boards and our departments are expecting. Um, you know, they all have their own lives to worry about, and then when they call for our services, they need to know that we're going to be there for them. And that's like the main thing that I have to circle back to sometimes, is to say, when we're available, like, when we're on, right, we have to be at the top of our game, or else it could mean someone's life. And it's hard to think about, I guess, keeping that at the top of the list of everything that we do when you're in the thick of it and you got so many things going on at once, and you're about to drop one of those plates that you picked up, and you just have to kind of slow down, take a deep breath, take some kind of meditation, or take a breathing exercise. And are great. I'm gonna shout out to our wellness committees that are out there in both NINA and APCO, and great job by those groups that do what they do. There's apps out there that can help with this, and I've just subscribed to those more lately, more times than often than not, because I just need to slow down sometimes and say, you know what, I need to think about what the mission is right now. Like, what do I need to get done today? And then taking that and showing that to the team too. Like, if they've asked me a question, my supervisory group, we have like a chat on Teams, and we'll throw out things to each other on there with no expectation to get something done immediately. It's not meant to be like, hey, I need this answer right now, because it goes to them when they're all off duty. So when they come on duty, they can see that, and they can chat and respond whenever they feel like it. And that's been actually really helpful for us, is just having an avenue where you can say, you can always reach me, but if it's something I need to hear about right now, call me. If it's something that you want to just get to me, but you feel like it can wait a little while, text me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, of course. But then if it's something that can wait a few days, maybe send me that email, and when that time comes, you'll get a response. And call me out if I don't send it back. If I have failed to get back to you in a timely manner, I want to know. And I've had that happen, and it's a good thing. It actually keeps me on my toes. So
I agree. It's okay, and maybe that's where we're putting this out to space. It's okay to tell us that we haven't answered an email. It's okay to tell us that you don't feel like you have been responded to.
yes.
Because we are doing so many other things. I say we, the collective we in the room. I don't do that anymore. But like, there are so many things that you are managing. There are so many things that you're doing. It's very easy that something might have fallen off and isn't in your purview anymore. So it's okay to bring us back to center and be like, hey, I sent you an email a couple days on this. Did you get a chance to take a look at it? But also, don't come at us aggressively. Like, understand, try to have a little empathy for what we're doing too. It's okay to be a little bit frustrated. There's something to be said where, like, we're not robots and we're human, and we're going to have flaws and feels and all of that. So I guess the next question I'd like to pose is, how do you still gain respect when you have all of those other things going on, that you're feeling a certain way, frustrated a certain way, but also vulnerable and maybe don't have all the answers? How do you command respect in those moments as well? Roxy, what you got for me? Oh, she's like, don't hit me.
I was just thinking that's a really tricky question. I think it just goes back to remembering that I can only do so much. And, when I'm feeling a certain type of way and things have gone on, and, I think, just going back to your last question, I'm somebody in the front line who always felt like my leader just didn't care much about me. And where the heck was my leader today? And is he even here? So I always have this like deep-seated fear that they're going to think that if I don't answer right away or have the right answer right this minute, then they're going to feel like I felt. And so I think that, when you're feeling a certain type of way and you're in a maybe low season, or you just don't really know what's next, I think it is really important for you to step back and take stock of what you've done and where you're at, and what your people are doing, because they're doing a lot of great stuff. And sometimes us leaders, we have so many things that are pulling us in 47 directions that we miss that. And so I think, having the courage to step back and say, oh, this is kind of a low season for me, and I'm trying to do the best that I can. And, everybody's doing good things, and they're okay, and we're okay. And, we're going to get through whatever happens. So I think, I can only do what I can to gain their respect, and I can only try to be the person that I am. And, if there's problems, we just have to address them and be open about them, and be honest, and, do what we can to build those bridges back. But I do think that it's really, really important to say, as a leader, that I was somebody who felt like my leadership was doing all of these things and didn't care anything about me. And so that's I don't want to say trauma, but that's a trigger going into leadership, because you don't want them to feel that way about you. But in actuality, you're just really freaking busy, and you also deserve to have a life, and you also deserve to have times when you're not 100%, and you deserve to not have to sleep with your phone. So I think that there's just a lot of layers to that question, and that's a good one. That's a good one.
Anyone else want to add to that one?
And I think transparency is huge. I think one thing I've learned in these last few years being at Nashoba is that people will meet you where you're at as well, right? We're trying to meet them where they're at, but they're also coming to meet us where we're at. And when we are transparent with our own needs as well, right? I think that's really hard as a leader, to be transparent with your needs. And some days I'm here, and my office is right off the floor, and I love having the door open, because again, 911 is the job that I love. So having the door open, being able to listen to the calls, still keeps me part of that job that I love. However, there are days when my door has to be closed. And when those days are here, my staff understands that those are the days that I need to be focusing on my budget, or that I need to be, doing really hard math. That's really hard for me, because I'm a, social studies geek and not a math geek. So, but having these conversations with them too, right? Like, and them understanding that, my door's closed, not because I don't want to be part of what's going on out there, but because I need to focus on these other things. One thing that I always like to say is, and I think we touched a little bit in the beginning of our conversation about this, was the skills that got you to where you are not going to take you to that next level, right? And I think this is something that has been explored in a lot of leadership, classes and things, but it needs to be said, is that, my 911 skills right now as the executive director are not going to help me get the center to where it needs to be. So understanding that, and having this understanding with your staff too, right? Like, and I've had this conversation with them where, like, me being on the floor to help you guys is not going to help the center continue to operate. And they understand that, and they are thankful that we've had these conversations. But it's also a lot of work to actually sit there and have these conversations. And it's a lot of brave work to sit there and have these conversations. And the more conversations you have, the more you're going to have, because now you've opened the door for this two-way transparency to happen. So that's my 2 cents.
I love your 2 cents. Give us 5 cents. I love that transparency is crucial. Like, I know that there's number of times where, like you said, you're sitting in there with your door closed because I'm doing math. I can't do math in spreadsheets. And um, there's a lot to be. We're also meeting with vendors because there are tech trends that are out there, right? Like they're coming at us. So we're trying to navigate what we need, what we don't need, and how we can avoid getting some of it into our center that just adds another process, or maybe something that, it needs to be in there because it'll make our jobs easier or make your jobs easier. And it's like you said, I can't do that from the floor, right? So I had a dispatcher once ask me to work an open shift on a holiday because it would make things better for her. Now, here's the thing, I don't disagree. And if I'm available to do so, I absolutely don't mind doing that. But during the course of a regular day, nobody's open on a holiday. So that's a little bit different of a conversation. But there's a reason why sometimes I can't fill that gap, or I can't sit the desk, or it's not helping us drive forward if I constantly have to do that, because I have to do things like payroll, I have to do things like purchasing, I have to meet with vendors, I have to do, RFPs, which, if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's a request for proposal. And some people don't know what that terminal. I didn't know what that was until I got into a leadership role, right? So when I'm talking like that, those are detailed things that we have to do. We are guardians of public dollars, right? Our budgets are not a secret. So, like, HR is a secret, our budgets are not. Everything we do is being fine tooth combed by the public. They're going to public meetings. We all have to go through public purchasing classes. We have to understand processes. And that's a whole other layer to what we're doing as leadership that I wish I could like throw it out the window and be like, it doesn't exist. I'm just going to purchase the best thing. It doesn't matter what it costs. But the reality is, it does matter what it costs. And so, as guardians of those public dollars, how do you strike the balance between saving pennies and investing in your people and your staff and the technology that might be out there? Kevin, what do you got for me on that one?
So I've learned that lesson the hard way. You have to understand exactly what the balance needs to be, because if you don't understand where that difference is between getting something done on time and on budget or by a certain deadline and following the rules of it, you can get your center, the communities that have bought into you, your department, into a lot of deep trouble. That just puts the mission behind it. It causes friction between yourself and your governing body. It can cause issues and lack of trust. And it's not to say that one missed shift or one missed meeting is going to cause that, but if you let that build up and get too far behind, your job as the director, as someone in leadership, your role as you get further up in management in these centers, from small agencies like mine to regional and medium sized to even the largest that we have, you have to consider all of those factors. And again, like Ann said, the budget, and you guys have all hit this, the budget is not a secret. If someone wants to come in, from the newest trainee that I have, when they start, all the way up to my most senior dispatcher, and sit down and talk to me for 10 minutes about, hey, what are we looking like for next year's grants? We'd really like something in here. I'm going to take them through that and say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is what our guidelines say. This is something that I've been thinking about. And then I bring that to my operations group and say, are you guys all on board with that? What do you think would be a good investment? Should we go for this new technology? And by involving all the different people in the discussion, it has really leveled the playing field and kind of the understanding of what is actually going on. But at the end of the day, the job needs to get done. The bill has to be paid. And if I have to sacrifice something to do that, I'm going to do that, because that's my job. That's not theirs. So it's going to get done. And I'm going to try to involve as many people in the process to keep them apprised of what's happening that I can.
And absolutely incredible. Like, we talked about this. I talked about this with Ricardo the other night on the open mic. It was like, sometimes I would like to hire, and sometimes I have stacks of applications. Sometimes I don't. And also, I can only hire what my budget allows. So as much as I want to hire, I would love to hire 100 people, so none of you ever have to worry about filling a shift on your days off. The thing is that trying to convince a board that we need this additional staff, and it's because, whatever the reasons are that we need this, these are hard conversations to have, because sometimes the stakeholders and sometimes the decision makers that we are reporting to don't have a clear understanding of why it needs to happen. And we spend a lot of our time juggling those conversations and trying to be professional so that we're not creating, as Kevin said, that friction, that bad blood, that extra expense that maybe they didn't want to spend in the first place. So it's a constant battle. And then you add in tech trends and you add in innovation and things that are coming at us. And you get a police chief or a fire chief that goes to a conference and they come back and they're like, I want to put this in right now. And you're like, hold on, like we can't have all of this at the same time. And I want to know how you embrace innovation and technology and the next big thing without losing sight of your purpose, and trying to manage the sky high expectations, because some of them don't have boots on the ground. And when I say boots on the ground, I'm talking about our butts in the seats, our dispatchers in the room. Tina, what do you think about trying to manage or juggle that?
Okay, gosh, there's a lot to unpack.
Unpack it.
So first of all, I want to go backwards just a little bit, because I think that these things are interconnected. So we were talking about trying to help people understand the complexities of what it means to provide resources and strategy and vision, and a direction for an organization, which is really complex, and it's changing so quickly because technology is changing quickly. I've taken a reverse approach to all of this, and I have found that it's been incredibly empowering and helpful to have that understanding of processes and the big picture. And that is, number one, innovation for us. There are definitely areas that I've identified that we have to work toward, like bridging language gaps and barriers, and helping to triage clusters of incoming calls so that our center isn't inundated. Those things are evident, and it can be solved by technology. But for the most part, 80 to 85%, this is what research says, 80 to 85% of errors or inefficiencies or problems are not due to human error. It's due to a process issue. And who knows better about processes being optimized than the people who work them every day? And so we established a mechanism within our center where all of our people are empowered to bring forward suggestions that tweak policy and process. They just bring it all forward, and then they're involved in the process of vetting it. So it's not just coming to me and I'm saying yes or no. I don't make the decisions. They collectively make decisions. And then as the leader, I'm able to support that. So if they work together and say, this is what we need to do, we might need an additional resource to make that happen. That's my cue to go to work, to bring that resource or bring that to fruition, so that their ideas, my team's ideas, can come to life. That's my role. And so by understanding it that way, and by making the invitation and then publishing not only all of the different ideas that come forward, but the outcome. We have a live document. Everyone can look at it at all times. And we've averaged right around an 80% implementation rate of ideas in our center. They see that, but if it's not, there's a reason why. And that has really helped us to start to build understanding, but also our team members understand that if they have an idea, they know that it's going to be out there, and they know it will be accounted for. So it doesn't go into a vacuum. And that's been the approach. So when we talk about kind of juggling all of these different things, it's also about inviting the members of your team in, right? Bring them to a city council meeting, bring them to committee meetings, bring them to a budget meeting. Let them just be a part of it. Bring a working group together and delegate parts of what you do that are fun, or give educational component to the members of the team, because the more they have that firsthand understanding or that front row view of a process, the more empathy that is grown within everyone. And I wish I would have had more of that rising up through, different areas of responsibility. And I also just try, like I said, up, and I hate that. So part of also the mentality shift is that a hierarchy doesn't look like a pyramid and I'm on the top of it like the cherry on the sundae. That's not me. I'm the dish that the ice cream goes in, right? Like I'm the bottom and I'm supporting. And so by doing that visually, and sharing that with our team, but also from a operational perspective and inviting them in and understanding my role is not to control things this way, it's to support things this way, and doing that for every role of leadership. Right. So our managers understand they're holding the supervisors, and the supervisors understand they're holding the line and helping them. By mentally shifting that, we're able to increase the level of ownership and understanding. It's not a perfect system at all, mind you. But what I found is that the fear of change that's built in the, like, how does it affect me? What's in it for me? And then how am I hurt by that? Or will I fail? Those things begin to decrease when we're able to increase that level of participation. And I don't mind that. And I don't even mind like doing the decision making or having those conversations with my team members in the room, because then they get to peer into my wild and crazy brain and they're like, wow, now I understand why she is the way she is. She's so weird. Now I know why. I think it's just an iterative process. And again, trying to be the leader I needed, because I often did not give my leadership, the people I reported to, the benefit of the doubt as I increased in responsibility. And so I remember that, and I understand, and I can appreciate why people might view me through that same lens, right? They're no different than me. So how do I help bridge that? It's an ongoing thing.
I love your visual on the Sunday boat, because that's really what it is. Like I always kind of, and that's the best way. I wish I had that in my like bag of tricks at one point, because I try to explain that like I'm not here dictating. I'm here trying to figure out what all of it needs, and every part of it, what my IT needs, what my radios need, what my people need, what my board needs. And I'm kind of sitting in the bottom of the bucket, kind of going, okay, let's put this scoop here, scoop here, scoop here. And I'm going to balance it all and just kind of keep it here and just keep supporting it as things are added to it. And I absolutely adore that visual on it. I feel like a lot of dispatchers are visual creatures, like stop touching me, like just let me do it. Maybe that's what we need. We all need to put like the Sunday bowl there and just put our names in the bottom and kind of be like, this is how it's supposed to work. And I definitely also agree that I did not have that same, like, I didn't believe that leadership cared. I thought leadership was out to get me. I thought that there was this, I don't know, this disconnect, if you will, this line in the sand. They're not one of us. They don't understand us. And I don't think that was ever really the case. I think that there were some cases where it might have been. Yeah. I mean, let's be serious. Not everybody is us, where we're trying to make the culture better. And let's be serious. When we started, me and Tina, the baby dispatchers, started when we were 12. When we started, things were not the same. There wasn't this like we were just dispatchers and you needed to stay in your lane. And I think as we have come into our own and we have come up through the ranks, we wanted to be those people. We wanted to shift the culture. We wanted to shift those conversations. And I do believe if you look at this, and especially the five of us that are here have been to conferences, we have sat on boards, we have sat on round tables with some of the vendors in our space. We are driving that change. It's here. We've done it. And now we need the people that are now not in the leadership roles, that are below that, and I don't want to say below it, who are above this, that's in the ice cream dish. We want that to continue. Like we've put in a lot of hard work to change that conversation and to start advancing and to give opportunities to dispatchers and to really get better education, higher education, keep moving in the space, and learn that you are bigger than the consoles you sit behind, and that your jobs are really bigger than that. So I'm going to end with one question that I want all of you to answer before we go into the QA session. And I know we have some anonymous questions that I'm really concerned about, but I think they will be fun. Ricardo has not shared them with us, for those of you in the audience right now, so we don't know what we're about to get. And if you have anything further, now's your chance. Get them into the QA section of this so we can track them. And so this is the last question. If you could whisper one piece of advice to your younger self entering this field, what would it be? Who wants to start?
I'll go.
Okay.
So the thing that comes immediately to mind is grow your circle, grow it early, start to know who you can send things to as you're learning through the experience. And if you have that person already, down the ranks, keep them with you and have them be someone you can still rely on to talk to and throw things to. Maintaining the line, of course. Obviously, there are boundaries. You have to keep boundaries in place and keep things confidential. We covered all of that today, but know who your circle of people are. I wish I had some at the beginning, or I wish that I had been more willing, and not willing, but just adventurous and saying, hey, what if I just go talk to that person, go sit in a training one day and get to know who they are. I might have known Ann and Jeremy and others years before that I did. But I started attending meetings and I started attending other conferences and other things. You just have to grow your team and then think about that. Just start to know who you can talk to and build that group up. And you will find out that they'll be friends for life. You know what I mean? In and out of work. So that's something that I wanted to jump in right away.
Ann?
I think I would say to myself, you can learn a lot by just observing, and never forget that you came from 911, but you're trying to make it better. So I think sometimes we as leaders, not that we forget where we came from, but we miss somewhere along the line the idea of making it better, and making it better wide. It's not just within my center. It's also about giving back to our communities. It's about giving back to our profession. So, similar to Kevin, get involved early, get involved with, all things, and try to grow that network, because it does make a difference. I think I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that I've made along my path if I had, the network that I have today.
Roxy?
Have the confidence to know that you can do it. I started in this with zero confidence. So, and I still struggle with that, but have the confidence to know that you're worth all the things, and you're worth having a say at the table, and you're worth speaking up, and you're worth knowing that you're doing a good job too, and that you're never going to be alone. You just have to be willing to push out of your comfort zone and interact with these amazing people who want to help you. They say a lot that leadership is so lonely at the top, and that's true to some sense, but I think of all of the cruddy things from COVID, the one good thing is I think it expanded everybody's circle and kind of forced us all to get to know each other a little bit better. But I think just remembering that I could do it, and to not get discouraged and just keep doing the right thing. That's all you can do.
Tina?
Man, it's so hard to follow you guys. You're so great. I think it's sort of become my mantra now. I wish I would have embraced it sooner. But it boils down to really embracing and understanding and applying to myself as well, that every one of us is doing the best we can with what we have and what we know. And when we know better, we'll do better because we want to. And that inherently people are good. and to assume positive intent, right? That there's so much we don't understand about what's happening inside of people, regardless of their job title. Such an important lesson that I've learned along the way, and that if I could go back and do it sooner, I might not have felt compelled to overextend myself in this effort to prove my worth. I might not have endangered my own physical health with extreme accessibility. I might not have diminished some of my deeply personal relationships because I had to be always on. I may have spoken my truth, not that I have a hard time doing that, but I might have done it sooner and more often, authentically, to give myself the space to do that. With the assumption that my sharing can help others grow, whether or not it would have been interpreted that way. But the more I'm able to let go and live authentically, the more I find that it's easier to put things into perspective when we're able to just take a deep breath and not feel like we have to control all the things all the time. I walked that path. I drove myself into the ground. I burned myself out at one point, and I'm not there now, but by letting go, I found that I held on better. My grip was better when I relaxed versus when I worked so hard. And that's what I want for everyone in the profession now. I want you to be authentic and to know that, like, the command and control, the command and control, the rigidity that was the history of our industry is falling away and giving way to this amazing, flattened, empowered profession. How cool that I get to see this start to happen. It makes my heart so happy. But just know, it's not even a matter of admin always or not always being against you. We're not against you ever. In my heart of hearts, like, I feel successful. Here's how I measure success. When I retire, and I'm closer to retirement than the beginning of my career, when I retire, if my team is able to just continue without missing a beat, that my absence doesn't diminish anything, but they're capable, they take it and they run and they do it better, then I've done what I was here to do. And it stopped being about me. And when that happened, I felt free. And that's what I would want to whisper in young me in her ear, so she didn't do all the silly things. But I guess had I not done them, I wouldn't be here understanding what I do. So I don't know. No regrets. No regrets.
I think for me, the one thing I would say is find the silver lining. Because even in hard times, there's a lesson. Even in bad leadership, there was a lesson. Even in difficult calls, there was a lesson. And even as I had imposter syndrome and thought that I wasn't owed the seat at the table, there was a lesson. And it all brought me to being here with you all here on these amazing forums. As Roxy said, COVID, there was a lesson there. And what the silver lining was, our circles are so big right now. Like, I can call Roxy. She's in Kansas, everybody. I'm in New Jersey. I can call Roxy at any time and we can have a conversation about what's plaguing us professionally, personally. And like Kevin said, that was all about building your network, build your circle early, right? Like, these were all lessons. These are all silver linings that we could find every single day. So we are past where we're supposed to be before we can open up the Q&A. Ricardo, are you coming back on here to do the Q&A with us? Oh, Ricardo. I don't know if he is.
Yeah, I can come over here.
It's up to you. However you want to do this.
All right.
I'm fine. Still reading questions too. You tell me.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that I added in here. So excellent work, all of you, for this last 10 or so minutes that we have here. I thought throwing them in here would be the easiest way to do this, especially because I want to make sure to record the answers for this, and it would give the audience the ability to upvote some of these questions as well, so we could get to the main ones that people wanted to hear. So we're going to start with this first one, and the first one says, "What strategies do you use to stay connected to the realities of being on the floor in your center, and how often do you interact directly with frontline staff?"
Every day.
Once
Every day. The beginning and the end of my day, I'll adjust my day, and I'll come in later and stay into the evening so I see my night shift, but walk around and ask them how they are and listen and remember what they say. And have the wherewithal that when you see them again the next time, that you ask them again about what they told you the last time. People want to feel seen and heard. And so by connecting on a human level and hearing them out, I think that that part is what builds that trust and that consistency, right? Because I don't just talk to people in my office. I don't just talk to one or two people. I know a life story about everybody. And just expressing gratitude for what they do, and go get them a cup of coffee, go fill up their water bottle, just do something, warm up their meal for them, do something once a day for somebody. Be that servant, just that it's like a ministry of presence on the floor, letting them know, hey, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. We couldn't do this without you. And sometimes it's that simple, but it's not rocket science for me. It's just connection.
Perfect. Anybody want to jump on to that one before we move to the second one?
I'll just jump in. I said it earlier, like I basically make a concerted effort just to make sure that I don't feel like they think I'm totally disconnected from them. So my office is further away from the floor. And if for those people that are designing new centers out there, talk to your people about what's best for the agency. Where do you want to see your leadership team? I would have definitely, a lesson learned is to say, like, be closer to your circle. Like Anne had said, luckily her office is right off the floor and other people's are as well. But if you have the choice to design that, be close so you can hear that going on. Yes, I have a solution. I listen to the radio here. Our vendors work with us on that, but being right there is a lot different than having to go through multiple doors to go find your director and your admin team. And when that's not possible, you still get up, you get off your butt, and you go in the room and you go see them. I brought in Panera winter mitten cookies for the team today just to say, here, thank you. Have a great start to your day. Here's a sugar rush. Sorry. Other days it's coming in and bringing in other things, or, hey, do you need anything? Can I go get something for you? Just being a little bit of having the face to the name and talking to your team as often as you can when it's practical. That's what you got to do.
Excellent. All right, so let's move on to the next one here. And the next question here says, how do you identify and nurture leadership potential within your staff? What mentorship strategies have you found most effective?
I think one of the biggest things is you have to empower your staff, regardless of where they're sitting, right? Whether they're sitting at the supervisor console or on the regular dispatcher console, or they're your IT guy or my admin. They have to be empowered to do the job. They have to be empowered to know that they can do it. Sometimes what I do is I assign people small little projects to help me, and I can identify through how they progress through the project or how they complete that project, how quickly, the leadership potential within them. I also like to identify those that aren't, creating problems within the center, those that are helping us that have become part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem. And I think the mentorship strategy has been having conversations, having people have the ability to come into my office and talk to me, or me being out on the floor and talking to them. So I think that's the biggest strategy for mentorship is conversation.
Awesome. Anyone want to build upon that before we move on to the next one?
I think gaining perspective, a part of the conversation having, especially in this a small center space, is I've tried over time to not just make a snap decision. If it's something that I can include some of my leaders and some of my potential leaders on, I want to see what they think about it, and let's hash out whatever is going on, because I think more times than not, when you're bringing in those potential leaders that are really, really smart and on the floor, they're giving me more ideas that I didn't even think of to solve X problems. So we've had some really good conversations by just me asking, hey, here's a problem. What do you think about it? In the end, it is my decision, but I've really learned more times than not that those emerging leaders, they have amazing ideas that didn't even cross my radar. So
Excellent. All right. So moving on to the next question here. This one, well, we're just going to go with it. It says, what are some practical ways? And you guys kind of touched on this a little bit already, but it says, what are some practical ways directors can stay approachable and actively engaged with their teams rather than being perceived as out of reach?
Can I do this one?
Yeah, sure.
Have a sense of humor. I feel like our jobs are already stressful. They're professional. They're all of these things. And if you come in there and you're rigid, everything you do is about discipline and order and policy. Like, we have enough of that. We've got policies for policies. We've got SOPs for SOPs. Have a sense of humor. Connect with your staff on their level. They have some of the wickedest, most sarcastic, most witty commentary. And if you can relax into that and understand that as long as they're still being professional to your callers and on the radios to your field responders, it's okay to laugh with them. It's also okay to cry with them. You don't have to be this superhuman, no feeling, not connected kind of person, robotic type of person. We talked about that before, right? Like, we are not robots. And if you just have a sense of humor and you lean into that with your people and your staff, you're not out of reach. You're just one of them. And it's okay to be one of them. It's okay to connect with them on that level and to meet them where they are. Because at the end of the day, then when you're being the professional, they're going to meet you where you are, because you need them to be professional. Like, one of the rules I had was, I don't care what you wear to work. And again, we can talk about uniforms for hours. Just show up, but be ready. Be ready that if the press is standing on our doorstep, that you can meet the press. And that's all I'm asking you to do, because I'm asking you to be professional when it matters, but I'm asking you also to be human and real, because that's what we are. Is we are human and we are real, and we're dealing with life and death situations and tragedy and all of the other things that make this job extremely hard. So just be that person. Be the person you want to hang out with at the bar, but maybe you don't, as the director, go to the bar with your people. That's okay. And if you do, that's okay too. But it's okay to be that person, to have those conversations, and it's not that serious sometimes. But because we have a billion other reasons that it is serious.
Excellent. So did anybody else want to add anything before we move to the next one here?
Just real quick, when people say if someone's disconnected, right? I think one thing that I learned is that you have to go find them where they are and kind of put them, look, it literally, like, the way I thought about it is, like, I worked with a chief once who was great about, sending out a message, hey, this is what I'm looking for you to do. Come see me if you have any questions. And then, like, every time I go up to the secretary, like, hey, is he in? Is he in? Can I talk? So at one point I'm like, hey, I know where he's at. I'm going to literally go find him where he is and say, hey, I really want to see if I could talk to you about this, but not put it in an email and say, yeah, I'll get an appointment with you next week. You have to go find them where they are and put them on the spot and think about, that's how, sometimes you got to be the one to stay engaged, right? It's not just, it's a two-way street. I would definitely, don't hold back. I would love if someone just came to me with something that needs to be addressed. Just a quick answer on that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And then I think this might be the last question that we have time for going into this, but this last question here, it just got upvoted. So this one went up to the top here. The question here says, how can you support staff that has required qualifications on paper but is struggling with interviewing?
I'll do it.
Go for it.
I think that if you have a culture of performance management and employee engagement that is helping people grow and develop, you should not be making a promotional decision based on an interview. Every day is an interview. How we show up, the energy we bring into the center, the way we help each other. Do we gossip? Are we a complainer? Are we a problem solver? Do we take initiative? And those things are so powerful in the decision-making process. It always breaks my heart when I see any organization make a decision based solely on how someone tests and interviews. It's tragic. So incorporate ways into your center where that everyday behavior is a part of the evaluation process.
Excellent. Anyone else want to build upon it?
I'd also just really encourage people to not talk yourself out of opportunities just because you perceive that you struggle with interviewing. A lot of people do it a lot better than they think sometimes. And so definitely don't get in your own head and say, oh, I can never do that because I'm such a terrible interviewer, because Tina's right. It's a whole perspective, not just a one-shot deal. And even if you don't get picked for whatever thing that you're interviewing for, learn from that process and build upon it and grow yourself so the next time that new opportunity comes, you can snatch that up and feel confident about it. And also just remember that, if you have people who are close to you, see if they'll practice with you and see if they can give you pointers. Those folks that you're willing to listen about what your blind spots are, that you feel safe with. Definitely reach out to your network and see if they would be willing to kind of have a test run and get you more comfortable in that seat. So
can I just, there was a document somewhere that said that women will not apply for jobs if they don't match 100% of the qualifications that they're requesting or the requirements. And men, if they make 30%, will still apply. Just apply. And I know that there, like, while that's a study specifically about the difference between gender discriminations and different norms, it applies to some men in our space too, because we have spent a lot of time thinking that we were just something, or we cornered ourselves. Just apply. If you meet qualifications, whatever, we're still interviewing, especially in the director level, right? We're still interviewing because we'd like to see what you do bring to our table, right? Because it's not always as clear cut as you think it is. And as Tina said, every day is an interview. There may be something that we see in you that maybe you don't even see in yourselves. Just apply, give it a go, try it. And what's the worst that can happen? You're no different than where you started, right? Like, you still have a job. You're still in good shape. Try, just try.
Well, and I think as a leader, if you find that there is something that one person is struggling with, right, whether it's the interview or one portion of the job that they're not really good at, or there's somebody that, if they get rejected on something, they kick the can for months on end and create more issues, have the courage to have that hard conversation and to bring these things to that person's attention, right? If somebody's struggling with interviewing, tell them they're struggling with interviewing. Hey, you're not presenting the person I know you are. What is making you struggle with the interview? What is holding you back? And have that conversation. They might open up to you, they might not, but at least you've tried. And as a leader, you have to try. I've had this happen where somebody interviews 100%. They did so well on the interview, but they weren't ready. And I had to have that conversation to say, you interviewed really well, and it's not your time yet. You still need to work on this, and this. And it's hard. It's hard as a leader and as somebody who has a heart. It's hard. But you have to get through those conversations, because that's how you're going to grow your staff. That's how you're going to make them better.
Excellent. So I already told the other panel that we were going to go over a few minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and try to get through these last two because they got upvoted more. So obviously these are ones that people really want to hear about. So I'm gonna go to this one next, and whoever wants to jump in with it. But it is how do you address the lack of diversity in leadership roles within the 911 profession, and are there specific initiatives you've implemented to mentor women or minority employees?
Can I take this one real quick? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, as somebody that fits into both categories of women and minority, I wasn't born in this country. I moved here when I was 13. If you hear me talk for more than 10 minutes, you'll see that I do have an accent. But I've never really felt, and maybe this is my perception personally, that there was an issue until very recently. And I will say this, the higher you get, the more scrutinized you're going to be. So regardless of whether you are a minority or you're not, once you reach a certain level of leadership status, or whatever it is that we're going to call this here, you are going to be much more scrutinized by everything and everyone. I will say this, there are so many opportunities right now and so many different programs that are DEI approved and that bring in that whole the NINA Women in 911 and having that group to lean on. Same thing with in Massachusetts we have some different programs for like Latino officers, or I would love to see stuff like that for 911 as well, but also with the caveat that because we belong to these groups, we're not any better than anybody else, and we are also not just thinking that we are going to get that job because we are part of this minority or this group, right? It's everything. It's the whole. It's my resume has to show for itself what I am worth, as well as how I present, as well as how I lead, how I handle the things that have happened to me. So yes, there is a lack of diversity in leadership roles within the 911 profession. I think that is diminishing as we speak. And I hope I am not speaking out of turn, but I think we are seeing, more minority, more women in leadership positions, in leadership roles.
All right. Excellent. So the next and final question here for whoever wants to jump in as we go into the wrap up of this excellent panel that's been going on. This has been good. Also, it looks like there are tons and tons of messages in the comment or in the chat. I can't see them because I'm over here on the question piece. But either way, this last question here, how do you ensure leadership development isn't just a one-time effort, but an ongoing part of your center's culture?
Ooh,
Me.
Oh, you go, Roxy. I'll go second.
Oh, you can go. You can go. It's fine. Don't gatekeep opportunity.
Go, Roxy.
Don't
you go, and then Tina will go.
Don't gatekeep opportunity. I think that that's something that happened to me as a young dispatcher, and that's something I've really learned is don't gatekeep the opportunities. If people have a desire to want to do something, then let's do whatever we can, move heaven and earth to get them where they want to go. If they want to go to get their RPL or go to get their EMP, what do I need to do to get them to the finish line? What scholarships do I know about? Who can I connect them to that is in the industry that maybe they don't know, but could help them get to where they want to go. I just think don't gatekeep the opportunities. Just because we're in leadership roles, I think that's another part of the transition that only leaders used to get the opportunity, and only people in higher levels used to get the opportunity. Everyone needs to get the opportunity. I want to develop people who can take my job someday. So let's give you every single opportunity that I know about and help you get there.
Amen, Roxy. I was just going to say that the most important responsibility of 911 leaders are to develop the next generation of leaders. If we're not doing that ahead of anything else we're doing, I don't care how much technology you buy, I don't care how much you pay hourly wage. If you're not cultivating the next generation of leaders, you're setting your team and your community up for failure. Is my primary job above all else. And by understanding that and embracing that and living every day through the lens of how can I help someone else grow into this knowledge, and opening a seat at the table and inviting people in to participate with you, like that is for me, it's the beginning and ending of everything. And I know that because I grew up in an atmosphere of scarcity. And so we're trying to shift that into an environment of abundance. And we can make that happen, but we have to shift the focus.
Excellent. Now, we do have enough time here where Keely, Ann, and Kevin, if you want to build upon this or answer that question as well as a kind of a closing for you for your last three, please do so. Or not.
Sure. No. I'll go real fast.
You're just waiting to see who goes first.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Not unwilling to talk.
Yeah.
I thought your screen froze.
Yeah. Our biggest thing that we found is that people, if they don't know of something existing, scholarship grants, opportunities, if they don't know about it, then they can't apply for it. So it's just pushing that out there to the point of annoyance, to the point of like, okay, you've told us, we'll do it when we're ready. Or someone will say, yeah, you know what? And then, all of a sudden you start to see people that work at other centers, not just my own, but other centers, like, hey, now they're coming to this association meeting. Now they're going to these trainings that you never saw them before because someone pushed them. So push. Just don't be over the top, but definitely it's a huge opportunity to tell people what exists out there, and then they can go to things. And, the scholarships are a huge part of that.
Help your staff understand that their development is also their job, right?
Yeah.
It's also their responsibility. It's not just my responsibility as the director to push out opportunities for you. It is also your job, if you want to grow, to start looking for those opportunities yourself. I think the 5 of us, and even probably the 6 of us, how many of us have gone to trainings on our own time? How many of us have paid for trainings on our own dime? It's not that I think is expected, but I think you have to take your growth into your own hands as well, and helping your staff understand that their growth and their development only depends on them.
I agree with all of this. I feel like when I was a baby dispatcher, I didn't even know places like NINA and APCO existed. And the one thing that's unique here in New Jersey is APCO is new. We didn't accept APCO trainings until September of 2019. So it's still relatively new. There's a lot of training on both sides of this, have immense amounts of training that you can get that are like webinar Wednesdays on the NINA platform. There's, professional certifications you can get on both sides of this. And I had no idea that some of these things existed because they again, to Roxy's point, they gate kept all of that. It was a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of it doesn't matter. You don't need to do these things. And the reality is, no, you don't need to do these things, but you should. And you should for nothing else. Like, I know Roxy because I went to CPE and I got delayed and I ended up in her class. And I connected with Roxy and she picked me up in her little gold car every single day that week, or those 2 weeks that we were there. And it's like you forge these friendships in these courses that you're taking, and you kind of come to these, and you're going to connect with certain people on higher levels and lower levels. But the connections, the connections are incredible in our space. And if if you're just kind of sitting there and all you want to be is just the dispatcher behind the console, fine, totally fine. But there's just this huge world out there, and there's these great networking opportunities to go to these courses and to connect with these people and to learn from other people in the space and the challenges that they have. Because guess what? You might not be alone in the challenge that you're having in your center too, and you'll know them by going to those courses or going to those conferences, those local, regional, national. Like there's so many things that are out there, and it is so big, Roxy, so big, and you have to step out there and you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone, because we like to hide in our dark 911 centers. We love to hide there. We're good there because we don't want people like, oh, I don't want people. I don't want to answer my cell phone when it rings. I answer the phone all day. Like, I get that. I totally understand. Conferences are exhausting. They are exhausting because you go from session to session. But if you've never done it, you don't know if you like it. So at least try it once. You'd be amazed. And in that one experience, who you might meet, who you might connect with, and what the relationships might be that forage from those opportunities. And if you're not sure, all of us have thrown our email out in that chat feed. Reach out to us. I think of everybody I know in space, we are probably some of the most vocal, and like we're happy to have conversations. We're happy to get on calls and talk to you. We're happy to point you in directions, to coach you in a different direction, or open your mind to something that you may not even have thought about. We've even done it with each other, right? Like when we're in it and we'll be like, well, hey, did you try that? And here we are, directors, well, retired, but here we are, right? Like here we are, and we're at that top of the helm, right? Like I'll shut up, Jeremy. I will talk to you for hours. Reach out to us, please. We're happy to give you some direction, some guidance, some advice, even if and I will tell you, never ask us a question you don't want to hear the answer to, because you're going to get it from us, I assure you, but in the most humbling way and in the most forward thinking way, because we're going to do this together, and we're going to keep changing the conversations, and we're going to keep making you feel good about what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table.
Perfect. Awesome. Excellent end to a superb and outstanding panel discussion here. And oh, there's 38 messages. I was just looking right now. I got to scroll all through them. Holy moly. So yeah, when you were, oh, that's what Jeremy said down there. I couldn't see it. So I was like, all right. No, this has been amazing. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being on here. Keely, for putting this all together, getting everybody together and stuff, getting the questions, just having like meetings and stuff. I got a chance to jump into one of the meetings before all of this happened on Zoom, and that was a lot of fun. So just keep doing everything that you guys do, and for everyone who's watching as well, come back often and watch this episode so you can continue to learn and get more answers, or even reach out, because as I've been saying all week, all of these sessions will remain here as long as I continue to pay. It will remain, but all of these are going to migrate over to my YouTube channel as well for Within the Trenches Media, so they will all be housed there. Every single Dare to Be Great from 1 to 6, all of those will be there. And Jeremy, hashtag DTBG7. Good Lord, it started the day I said that I was going to be done. Good night. Okay. So I do have an announcement that I will be making at the end of the day today. So maybe it has to do with what you're talking about. I don't know. Nobody here knows yet. But either way, this has been an excellent one. Come back. All of the chat information as well, it remains. It's not just for when it's live. It remains on replay. So you can come back, you can go through, you can hit up the QA piece and see each question that was answered. If you end up coming in here and you see that and you go straight to it, once you press that question, it'll take you to the moment that it started being answered. So that's one of the cool things about this platform as well. And so come back often. Thank you all very much, every single one of you. We're going to be going to the next session here that's going to start in about 5 or so minutes. That's going to be with Kelly Cunningham and Libby Howland. They are out of Eaton County 911 in Michigan. They're going to be doing a panel discussion called Staffing in the 911 World, How to Hire and Develop Quality Employees and Create a Desirable Work Environment to Encourage Lifelong Careers. Boom. We're going to be moving to that one next. We'll see you